Hello everybody, welcome to a new version of Full Force Drafting. And we're doing something very interesting today. I'm going to be going all out insane. I'm going to be trying to draft the Sacrifice deck. So I want to get Emerald Gear Smashers, which is nice to see here, as well as Defiant Salvagers, and I'm just going to take as many as possible. And then I'm going to grab Wrangles and Hijacks and other cards that steal our opponent's things as when they wheel if I can. And try and just go as deep on that theme as possible. Red-black seems like a really fun color combination, but I'm going to take it to the extreme and draft it in a way that you maybe shouldn't. And I'm basically just going to force myself every single time that I see like Gear Smashers or Salvagers or Wrangles or Hijacks and things like that to just take them over everything else. Even $5 Fatal Pushes, I'm going to take this Gear Smasher just because... yeah, maybe not the proper way to do things, but I want to make sure that I have enough sacrifice outlets and that it's a viable deck, and we're going to try and test that as hard as we can. So basically a stipulation draft. We're going to see what we can do with it and see if we can take down this draft by just being very aggressive sacrifice and what that'll mean. That being said, I've drafted Aether Revolt a few times. I'm a little bit new to the set, because it just came out on Magic Online, and I was away for a little while going to PAX South, so that's why my content hasn't been as regular. We're going to be back to once a week right after this. But I have noticed when I've tried to do similar strategies that these implements are actually very important. Things like implements have been very strong for me. Even though Aether Chaser is a great card, and I think that it's really important, I almost want to take this Implement of Combustion over it. Because it gives us a 1/1 servo, I think I'll take this, but it's really tempting to almost just go for implements because they haven't been wheeling as often as I would like, and having artifacts to sacrifice has been something that I've had a bit of a problem with when I've wanted to have things like Emerald Gear Smasher in my deck. So just something to keep in mind. These are probably more important than they look like, just as combo enablers with, you know, Gear Smasher type cards. So I'm going to grab the Aether Chaser. Oh, now we have a Wrangle, and there's no, like, sacrifice card here for us to take over it, so I'm going to snap off a Wrangle here and try and see if we can get something like maybe Universal Solvent to wheel. It's not an amazing card, but it'll go with our theme of we're probably going to grab some improvised cards, so we're going to have a lot of artifacts to tap because we want to have a lot of artifacts to sacrifice. And so we're going to grab some improvised cards to just play off of that theme. And we'll also be grabbing a bunch of, I mean, obviously Emerald Gear Smashers and Salvagers. So things like that just to sacrifice these if we're not able to use it early, like later in the game. Like if it's early on in the game and we need to use it right away, then we can use it. Otherwise, we can use it later in the game. Kind of useful either way, which is nice. Not a great card, but certainly reasonable to take. We've got another Aether Chaser and also an Aether Poisoner. Both of them are very good. I like the Poisoner a lot because it's just great on defense. I'm not sure if I'm going to be more aggressive or more of a hang back kind of get value deck. Right now I'm positioned to be fairly aggressive. I've got the Gear Smasher and Chaser, got Wrangle, so we're kind of more red focused, and it looks like we're kind of smashing face with some lower end creatures. This card's more if we were going to be more mid-range, have more Poisoners, more Salvagers, and slowly build them up, and then beat our opponent in the late game, I think. So I think I want the Aether Chaser here. Certainly reasonable to take Poisoner, though. The card's really good. I think Chaser's a little bit better. Now we have Sweatworks Brawler, which is a very good improvised card like we were talking about. So if we're trying to get some artifacts off of Chasers, then Sweatworks Brawler is very nice. I've been impressed with the card. More than I thought I would. 3/3 Menace is pretty solid. There's also Implement of Malice and a Wrangle. So we've got a lot of choices here because I've underrated the Implements of Malice before in my drafts. I certainly did it last night on stream a few times. I'm tempted to take the Wrangle. I like the Brawler a lot. It might just be that the Brawler is the best card here. I want to grab as many Wrangles as possible, and I said I should almost just do it as a stipulation draft where I just take them over other good cards. But I also think that these are the ones that'll wheel. The sacrifice engines are the ones that won't. So those are the ones that I'm kind of forced to take. I'm going to take the Brawler here and hope that the Wrangle comes back, because I think it should. I've got a very high hope that that'll happen. Now, Welder Automaton, it's an artifact, it's a creature, fairly aggressive, got some late game reach, which is exactly what we want. That's what Emerald Gear Smasher is good at, is we'll just keep attacking early on with Aether Chasers and Gear Smasher and Sweatworks Brawler. And then if our opponent can clog the board, then Gear Smasher just sacrifices our creatures till they're dead. And Welder Automaton has a similar effect. Ooh, Weldfast Engineer is sick. This card is very sweet. So it pumps up an artifact creature +2/+0 until end of turn before your combat. So that's really, really nice if you've got anything with like First Strike or Trample. Like any of the trains for sure is really, really good. Mobile Garrison's really nice with it because you can kind of attack with it and give it Vigilance. This is really neat. Lots of cool things you can do with it. Engineer or Wrangle? I really like the Engineer. I know I need to be taking these Wrangles, but they go really late. So I'm going to take the Engineer. Now we've got a Solvent. Not super happy about that, but Machinations is bad. The first time that I read this, I actually thought that it just said pay 2 and each opponent loses 3 life. You gain 3 life, so I was like, oh my goodness, like this card's insane. If you just get a ton of energy, how do they ever win? And then I noticed that it said sacrifice Gonti's Machinations. And by that, saying that I noticed it, what I mean is chat told me because I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, this card is kind of terrible. I think we just grabbed the Solvent. There's nothing else there for us. Implement a Combustion Wheel. That's really good for us. Great sign. I wasn't sure the implements would come back. I've had a lot of trouble wheeling them before. Resourceful Return might be useful. I'm not 100% certain on that. I don't think what Watchful Automaton is useful. I mean, it's a 2/2 for 2 if we don't have any blue mana, and I'm very unlikely to play any blue in this. So let's just take Resourceful. And sure, a Consulate Turret, I guess. Like, there's nothing super interesting. Foundry Assembler might make it in. If I get enough artifacts, it's possible to be tapping a bunch of them and get a Foundry Assembler out on the cheap. So it's not a totally unreasonable card to have. Very happy Wrangle Wield, which I did expect, but it's good to see. Ornithopter, another Resourceful Return. This cuts off our color a little bit more. Might signal better for other people. So I kind of like that. Like, giving an Ornithopter doesn't give any real signals one way or another. Cutting off a Resourceful Return, even if it's just subconscious, it makes people kind of think like, oh, well, there's no black cards in this pack. So if you see a black card right at the end, I know I myself, like, I have to think in my head, like, wait, like, this card isn't good. It's not actually a signal. Because every once in a while, I'll kind of be like, man, I got like 2 or 3 black cards in a row at the end of this pack. And so, like, maybe black is the direction I should be going. Even though all the cards are totally unplayable and you just shouldn't worry about them. So it's just something to keep in mind. We've got Aether Chaser, Implement of Malice, Welder Automaton. Aether Tide Whale is absolutely disgusting. But, I mean, I'm not going to be able to play it in this deck. And that's not what we're about. This is full force. We are steamrolling right ahead. I think that the Aether Chaser is what I want. Such a nice, tight, aggressive card, and we already have a bunch of other ones, like we can use the energy. If one of them gets killed before it can use the energy, then the other one might be able to use it. And of course, like, pumping out little artifacts is always pretty good for us. So I'll take another Aether Chaser. Ooh, Gear Smasher. Have to take the Gear Smasher. We don't have enough Sacrifice Engines yet. For double Wrangle, we definitely need more Gear Smasher type cards. Implement of Malice would be good. We had one in the last pack as well that I'm hoping will wheel. Frontline Rebel, I played a couple times in Sealed, was pretty unimpressed with. I mean, I wasn't hopeful of what the card would do at the time, but I'm even more disappointed than I thought I would be. The card's probably not one that I'll ever try and play. Just too easy to get blown out with it. Having to attack is such a big downside. And its stats are good, but not so good that they make up for that. I mean, 3/3 for 3 is fine and all, but it's certainly nothing to write home about, so I'm happy enough just letting that one go. Alright, so hopefully we can get a Salvager at some point. Ooh, Chandra's Revolution's really good too. Wow, we've got a lot of great cards here for us. Oh my goodness. The Daredevil Dragster I have been incredibly impressed with. This card just hits so hard. And, I mean, sure, you had to lose it after a couple turns, but you just replace it and get an extra card, which is nothing to scoff at. So I'm really happy to see a Dragster. Reckless Racer and Revolution are both fantastic cards as well. Implement of Combustion, I'm hoping will wheel because there are so many good red artifact cards here. Oh, like Revolution's good removal, and we don't have any yet. We do have the double Wrangle, which will do something. Daredevil Dragster. Man, I really want this card. I've been absolutely destroyed by it every time I've played against it. This card's also very good to pilot things, because of course, just being able to loot when you do have a vehicle to crew is really good. And another First Striker is nice too. It attacks well on top of that, just on its own. Been very impressed with all of those cards. I'm not 100% certain that Dragster is the right card. I just really want to play with it because I've been killed too many times by this card already that I just want to be on the giving end rather than the receiving. Indomitable Creativity. I don't remember this one. Okay, yeah, that I'm not interested in at all. Another Wrangle's a thing. That should definitely wheel. We've got an Aether Chaser and another Welder Automaton. God, 4 Aether Chasers. I'm not even sure that I want that many. I'm going to be hyper aggressive though. They crew the Dragster. Hopefully I can get some other vehicles that they can crew. Like Renegade Freighter in Kaladesh would be great for all of the Aether Chasers that we have. I think that the Automaton will come back. We'll just do this. Another Aether Chaser. Ooh, but we've got a Gear Smasher. Well, I'm definitely taking that. This is an almost mono red deck right now. We're trying to get black cards, but they're just not coming. I do have Weldfast Engineer, which is very solid, so I'm happy with where we're at. Emerald Gear Smasher. If this deck is going to work with a bunch of Wrangles, and if we can hopefully get them in Kaladesh Hijacks, then, I mean, this is the way to do it, I'm pretty sure. Ooh, we've got an Augmenting Automaton, which wants us to be more black, and it's a nice cheap creature. It's actually not bad. Like, Sludge Crawler was constantly underrated in BFZ for a long time, and eventually people realized that, like, yeah, it's not great later. Like, it's decent enough early game, and later on in the game, you can just pump a ton of mana into it, and it's kind of annoying, so always pretty solid. I don't think it's an amazing card, but it's certainly worth a look at. With how few artifacts I have, do I want to play an Automaton? I have the Aether Chasers, which will make artifacts, but not always. So I think that the Automaton's the pick, even over the slightly better Atog. Filigree, Crawler. It does give us an extra artifact, and I don't need another Resourceful Return. I don't care about any of the other cards. I'm actually hoping to pass as many cards of other colors as possible, just so that people stay out of red-black. Siege Modification, another Welder Automaton. This card I don't particularly like. You'd need a lot of vehicles to make it work. And the problem is that then you have issues with, like, if you've got a bunch of Siege Modifications and a bunch of vehicles, that might work out, but you might draw, like, a bunch of Siege Modifications, not have the vehicles, or the other way around. And it's just really, it can lead to a lot of awkwardness. I think that that'll be the case. I'm not a huge fan of that. Ooh, Alley Strangler. Menace is pretty solid. Iron Tread Crusher is not the worst. The problem is that we have very few 3-power creatures. Just the way our deck is coming together. We've got a bunch of Aether Chasers and Gear Smashers, but not a whole lot that can crew it. Basically just Sweatworks Brawler and Engineer. So we would need to be tapping multiple creatures to do it, which makes it significantly harder to get online. I think it's just Alley Strangler. Like, sure, Aether Chaser, once it attacks in once, can crew the Tread Crusher, but it's not always a guarantee that's going to happen. Another Foundry Assembler. Nice. The Implemented Combustion Wield. Neither of the other red cards did, so that's unfortunate. But we've cut red pretty hard. Another Wrangle. I really wish that we'd gotten a Defiant Salvager so we could actually sacrifice more creatures. Like, right now we can steal artifacts. Like, we'll have to steal artifact creatures, not so much actual, creatures themselves, which is too bad, because there's, like, some green decks and stuff that don't play as many artifacts, and I would really like to be able to punish them in some ways, but not going to be able to do that. Now we have Renegade Freighter, which seems like the pick. Dynavolt Tower is not what this deck is looking for. But Renegade Freighter is perfect with all of our Aether Chasers. I don't think I can cut any Wrangles, just because that's the point of this deck, is to try and see how many we can play. Maybe one and try and get some Hijacks. I'd love Hijack instead, because that'll steal actual artifacts. That's the slight disconnect here, is that these steal creatures. These want to sacrifice artifacts. Not all creatures are going to be artifacts, so that's a bit of a problem. Hoping that we can kind of make up for that in a few ways. Wow, this pack is so good for us. Foundry Screecher is awesome. Salivating Gremlins is really good with all like the Aether Chasers and other artifacts that we have. Don't mind Bomat Bazaar Barge, although it's a little further down. Foundry Inspector and Weldfast Monitor are both fantastic. Weldfast gets really good with a Weldfast Engineer. It's already pretty good. I think it's been pretty underrated a lot of the time. But I mean, when you have cards like Weldfast Engineer, it gets even more insane, because a 6/3 Menace is pretty disgusting. Hard to not 2-for-1 them at least, and not blocking it is generally not a great option for your opponent. I like Quicksmith Genius more than I think a lot of people do, and we have a lot of ways to get artifacts onto the battlefield. Again, quad Aether Tracer, but I think Built to Smash is a little more important. We don't have a ton of removal, we just have the Welding Sparks so far, and Built to Smash is really nice on like some of our artifact creatures. It's really good on Aether Chaser. Like, we're trying to be very low to the ground aggressive. When our opponent's going to have to block a fair bit, then Built to Smash will just kind of act as a pseudo-removal spell. Because we want to have them on the back foot all the time. Now we have a Reckless Fire Weaver and really nothing else. We could, like, hate a Shrewd Negotiation or something, but it's Leagues. There's only Leagues now in Magic Online, so there's not much of a point in doing that. I think that the Fire Weaver is just acceptable. Wow, DePaula? That's pretty gross. DePaula's a very nice card. I mean, it's just kind of huge, but we're not in that direction. I can just take Foundry Screecher here. Maybe cut Alley Strangler for it. Play the Screecher. And I don't mind Strangler, but Screecher is a little bit better. The evasion's better, and it's got slightly better stats, I think. Just, like, you want more power rather than more toughness. Hijack should wheel. I know that I was talking about wanting it, but that's the card that will wheel. I'm hoping for the sacrifice things was what I was trying for. Didn't get as many as I wanted. I really wanted a Defiant Salvager. Wish that we'd have gotten one. We have a Cogworkers Puzzle Knot, which is pretty good to sacrifice to, like, Smashers. But I think that the Quicksmith Genius is enough better that I'll just take that. Not sure exactly what I'm cutting. Probably Intruder. Although, like, Wrangle, Hijack, and Intruder is really nice. Take the Quicksmith and we'll think about that. Another Foundry Screecher and a Fireforger's Puzzle Knot. Another good sacrifice card for the Gear Smashers. Probably these Foundry Assemblers, honestly. They're not wonderful. We've got a lot of creatures. And we don't need a lot of top end either. I can get away with playing 16 or maybe even 15 lands here. Right now, this is probably a 15 land deck. Screecher or Puzzle Knot? I can probably cut this. I'm a little bit light on the artifacts, but the Aether Chasers can kind of help with that. It's really tempting to take the Puzzle Knot just to have another artifact. Take the Screecher, though. Salivating Gremlins, pretty good. Chandra's Pyrohelix came back. That's a nice card for us. Another Salivating Gremlins. None of these cards matter. Sure, we'll take a rare. And now we're just kind of taking the chaff here. We're probably not going to get anything else that matters. This is an interesting build. I've got double Salivating Gremlins, which want us to have all those artifacts. The Quicksmith Genius is nice. Hopefully that Hijack comes back. I might feel really dumb not taking it. It didn't. Wow, that's awful. I really thought it would. Well, that's my mistake. I didn't force it as hard as I should have. And I even said that I should take it. Like, it should have almost been a stipulation, but double Wrangle can help, I suppose. I'll still play the Wrangles, because I want to try and see how far we can go on that. And with Intruder and triple Emerald Gear Smasher, it seems like it'll be pretty solid. Plus, we're just super aggressive. Like, Wrangle just gets rid of a blocker and lets us keep smashing in. I wish I'd grabbed that hijack. That was a big mistake, I think. Emerald Gear Smasher really wants us to steal artifacts. Same with the Intruder. Like, it's just an artifact removal spell in our deck. Makes Intruder a lot worse. Makes the Gear Smasher slightly worse. I feel like I have to take Intruder out now, even, just because of not having enough ways to steal opponents' things. And I don't have enough of my own artifacts to really want the Ravenous Intruder. I'm not crazy into artifacts. I've got a lot when you include the Chasers, but, you know, not necessarily enough to go super deep on a Tog. Like, this card is just not good unless you're sacrificing artifacts to it, and I can't reliably sacrifice multiple artifacts a turn. And I don't want to be sacrificing Daredevil Dragsters or Renegade Freighters. Probably not wanting to sacrifice Welder Automatons. The 1/1s are what I'm probably wanting to sacrifice, but I'm not going to get a million of those. Just, like, I've got 4 in my deck. I don't have any extra way to get, like, a ton of extra energy. So this is 16. I need to cut at least 1 card if I want to go 15 lands. Possibly 2 if I want to go 15. I for sure want to cut a 3-drop. Make it slightly cheaper. I feel like Salivating Gremlins goes out, and then I just run maybe both of the Salivating Gremlins out, and then we run with 16 lands. Keep the Foundry Screechers for the evasion. Gear Smashers for reach. Quicksmith Genius so that we don't flood out. We can just discard our extra lands. That's why I'm more willing to run 16 lands in this too. Like, I think that it's perfectly reasonable to go to 15. The other reason is just the plethora of 3-drops. If it was like this, I'm pretty sure I'd just jam 15 even with the Quicksmith Genius. But there's a few too many 3-drops here for me. It's too bad. I mean, I like Salivating Gremlins. It might be Quicksmith Genius with how few lands we're running. Or with 16 lands we're running. I don't know. I don't want to flood out. Like, we're such a low curve deck that messing this up and having too many lands, we don't want to draw like 3 lands on from turn 4 to turn 7. Like, drawing 2 or 3 lands in a row will stop us from having the reach that we need to close out a game. And if the game goes long, we're not going to win. Like, our deck is very focused on winning early game. It is not going late. It's never happening. So maybe Genius just goes out. But that possibility of just having too many lands later in the game and being able to throw them away seems really good. It's not as powerful as Salivating Gremlins on the attack, though, which is the disadvantage, obviously. And I don't need 3 power without artifacts because I don't have anything to crew that costs that much. These are both crew 2. I don't have any other vehicles, so it's not like super important that the base of this is slightly lower than the Quicksmith Genius. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it this way. I've been more and more on board of Salivating Gremlins, but I think I can get behind leaving it out this time. So it's probably like a 10-6 split. I might go less except for the fact that we have Augmenting Automaton, and I want to be able to pump that up a fair bit later in the game if the game does go longer. It's one of the few ways that we can close out a late game. Like, late game, we're going to want either Automaton, Foundry Screechers, or a Quicksmith Genius to kind of be able to grind out enough value and win from there. Wrangle can help at that point as well. We might be able to get them to attack too aggressively, steal something, and just mize out a win. Alright. Well, this is the deck. We are hyper aggressive, and we've got a lot of sacrifice effects. Really sad again that we didn't get the hijack. More sad that I didn't get any Defiant Salvagers, because that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to play this third Wrangle and just sacrifice their creatures, not just their artifacts. But unfortunately, we didn't get there, so I'll try this again maybe sometime. I'd like to try it on stream. Definitely stop by, because this is a deck that is intriguing to me. I really liked Rise of the Eldrazi, the black-red sacrifice that was in that format. I'm kind of a sucker for it. It's just a ton of fun. Rise of Eldrazi is kind of when I really got hooked into drafting, and that just sold me on that deck forever. So anytime that it pops up in a format, I just want to draft it, and I will definitely be trying it again. So be back in a moment with round one. Okay. Swamp would be very nice, but I think that we just keep this. Aether Chaser's a nice aggressive card. And if we can lead off with a bunch of them and then go into an Emerald Bruiser, then we're in great shape. Or, yeah, sorry, Emerald Gear Smasher.